the Philosophical Father Hertz opened to his son, which he no longer wanted to keep closed to him because of his old age, but showed and explained to him everything that was necessary for the complete composition and preparation of the Philosopher's Stone. 1717. To the interested reader of the Philosophical Father Hertz's beneficial, dear reader, although there have been a number of beautiful little treatises on this material of high universal medicine in just a short time, there is none to be found among them that has presented the secrets of this highest art in such a beautiful order, with a clear presentation and easy comprehension, than this, which was written many years ago by a distinguished French philosopher and physician and was communicated to me by a good friend in France. I would therefore like to have it written to you in the best possible way, because it gives those in the high philosophical work something to confirm it, for the instruction of the beginning Hermitian sons, and those who fall into the labyrinth of careless and pernicious gold-making without prior study are commanded to praise and honor their goods in the light of nature and lead a godly Christian life and conduct for the sake of their holy name. Rip. Chym. Schr. Hermes in superiori sphera est in medio fontis vena, quae est philosophorum regula prima. Detailed instruction in which a father explains to his son everything that is necessary for the composition and preparation of the great stone of the ancient sages. Preface. My son, after having consulted for a long time with myself as to whether I should leave you the great secret of the Cabalæ of the wise in writing, my old age in which I find myself has finally moved me to leave you this instruction as a final pledge of my paternal affection. I thought that I could not let you see a greater witness of this than if I were to reveal to you the entire practice of the true preparation of the Philosopher's Stone sincerely and without a few parables or words that raise doubts. The most sublime science that exists in all of nature is invented, so that I can now teach you the true instruction of our meaningful art and discover the place where we hide the keys that reveal the secrets of nature. So I only want to describe the essential things that actually belong to our work and not confuse your mind with a lot of false and superfluous speech or with a few similes and foreign names of our simple few materials, which the philosophers use in their books, the children of the to teach whiteness thereby and to lead the ignorant and false discipline away from the right path of truth. But my son, in this conversation I want to tell you clearly and honestly nothing other than what will be necessary to prepare this wonderful work, and I want to tell you without fail the true science of our precious materials. I will prepare to teach you the essential salt of whiteness, or the brimstone of the wise and the mercury of the philosophers. I want to teach you the right source of the living everlasting water, which is the heavenly aqua vitae of the children of science. I want to show you the skill and art of drawing from the center and from the deepest well of nature. I want to give you the complete and perfect knowledge of the hidden natural calcination of the philosophers, which they never reveal in writing and not except to their children, and only want to say it in the ears of secret disciples and reveal it. In this discourse I want to teach you the watering and washing of philosophers who are not otherwise common. I want to teach you the fiery water or watery fire that you use to wash and whiten our virgin earth. I want to show you in what form the philosophers bathe our precious matter in the flames of fire so that they make it white and alive again. What secret they never want to write in their books, nor is it taught to anyone other than their secret Kabbalistic friend. About all this I want to tell you about the manner and genre and the employment of the true unburnable and everlasting fire of the wise men and ancient philosophers. Ultimately, I also want to teach you the true golden oil of the philosophers without some corrosive quality, which can never be brought into a corpus that they use for incineration, and to give their precious materials an angra or entrance and a flow. This gold oil is the highest, greatest universal remedy or medicine against all the ailments that the human body can encounter. Then it is undoubtedly the great aurum potable of the ancient philosophers. I want to really teach you all these things, manual and practical. Then our work is easy to perform, and when we have revealed our Kabbalistic secret, we find that it is just child's play and more of an entertaining than tedious woman's work. But since this little book, which I am writing solely for your information, is about nothing other than the true alchemia measured by nature, I want to first teach you what the true alchemia is and then also tell you what it is. There is a big distinction to be made between the common alchemists and the true philosophers. Chapter 1. What alchemia is. My son, you should know that the word alchemia in Arabic means fire. But alchemia is a very secret and hidden piece of natural philosophy, indeed the most necessary piece of physics or the proclamation of nature, from which an art was made with which the others cannot be compared, teaches how to bring every precious imperfect stone into a perfection, all human bodies so afflicted with disease, to perfect health, and to transform all physical metal into true gold and silver, which through a universal medicinal corpus history to which all other particular medicines are attributed, to which medicinal corpus, through a secret, meaningful art that is only revealed to the children of truth and is made and manufactured with manual work. My son learns here that this science is called a flower of wisdom, while it is sharpened and explained by the human understanding and, for the sake of truth, is finally overcome by experience, which witnesses who are still alive today can give sufficient testimony. This wonderful science of natural alchemy shows the human mind a way to understand the form in which everything can enter into and exist in the divine forces in a more lively and profound way. On the difference between the common alchemists and the true philosophers. But even though I tell you a lot about the alchemy, I'm not talking about the one that's going strong today. Then I make a large and noticeable distinction between the alchemy which is generally practiced and that of the true philosophers, between the work of today's alchemists and the children of science. So that you are not deceived in such a highly important trade, I forbid you to deal much with the false disciplines and process givers, which I want to have understood from the common alchemists, who, as blind people who are ignorant of the art of our hidden secrets, will not refrain from telling you to avert the right path of truth that I show you here, so that they can seduce you and cause you to follow their wrong opinion and foolish fantasies. Know therefore that there is as great a difference between true philosophers and common alchemists as there is between day and night. That this is the case is because all true philosophers who have worked on our great work agree and have compared themselves, namely to take a few materials in hand and make their stone out of it, since the common ones are alchemists take a variety of materials that they can bring to the table so that they can achieve their desired purpose. The true philosophers work with because they make and produce their work without any expense or fuss, with dishes in an oven with one or two materials which are only the same. On the other hand, the alchemists do their work by force, with a lot of expense, with many different ovens, different dishes, with many different fires and a large amount of different materials. In summary, God Almighty created everything out of nothing, so the common alchemists make nothing out of everything. But the true philosophers follow nature and make very great things out of a small amount of their material. I could certainly bring many other things here against the common alchemists than what I have reported, but here it is enough to show you that you would be deprived of all your senses and understanding once you had become master of the highest science of nature I teach you in this little treatise, if you want to go and engage in conversation and conference with those people who are blind and ignorant in this high science. I have written this chapter for no other purpose than to instruct you what the sovereignty of the true natural alchemy consists of. This comparison and contrast of a true philosopher and a common alchemist that I am making here is aimed at making you understand that you will find ignorance and lies among the common alchemists. Now I want to go and explain and instruct you the practice of the highly intelligent and easy work of the great philosophical work. But before I reveal the secret of our simple and highly hidden operations or handicrafts, I first want to write a chapter in which I want to design the natural garden of the philosophers, as in a ground tablet, in which the true children of science create the solar and lunar trees the wise sow, plant and transplant or transplant. With the example I want to give you, you should be careful that all the care and effort of the philosophers is aimed solely at this purpose and consists of nothing other than preparing their earth properly and well. When they build and prepare these as diligently and naturally as the good farmers do, they simply throw in their metallic seeds, which over time naturally produce the solar or gold tree. Chapter 2. How one must naturally sow and transplant the gold tree of the philosophers. My son, you are not ignorant that the grain that is sown in the earth should be pure and without any defects or corruption, and that its vegetable or growing salt is not altered or changed so that it may bear fruit. When it is thrown into a fertile, well-cultivated and well-built land with such a desirable quality, nature accepts this grain, resolves it and releases it or closes it from the bonds of its first fixation or fastening, so that it is led to the seed powerful movement by this means, which is promoted by history through the work of nature in a fertile, salty soil by means of the warm air and the rays of the sun. Afterwards it becomes timely and perfect through the help and contribution of the 4 elemental qualities. You can see through this thing, as I have told you, the form in which the wheat grain rots, how it becomes soft and thick as a result of this putrefaction, and sheds its shell or skin. I want to say so much that it is through this putrefaction that the soul or life that lies hidden in the grain of wheat is revealed and can be seen after it has been awakened. Then, as soon as the soul has become free and alive, it brings it here and first throws a small, very delicate leaf onto a small, delicate leaf, on which, after it has placed a button, it rises higher and higher with the help of the warmth of the air and the moisture of the earth and go continually growing to the proper height of the ears and bring here the grains with the straw and its little branches in it, which bloom in their season. Whichever grain is perfect and finally ripe, nature then decorates it with a golden color, as it were. Through this thing I am saying here you perceive that the grain of wheat which was thrown into the earth was dead, but that the soul which nature had previously enclosed in it, because it was dissolved and, have been secreted by the putrefaction, then the growth of the stalk or stem of the weights dies. It rises above itself and becomes a wheat ear again and has become 100 times better and stronger in its juicy nature and form. If the grain had not rotted in the earth, the soul that lay hidden within it would not have been able to grow to greater strength and juiciness. Take note of what I tell you here, 3 different origins and different things about the new grain. Firstly, it is the grain that has rotted in the ground. For others, the stalk that grows from the earth. Thirdly, the ear which comes from the grain and stalk, and after these 3 the 4th, namely the new grain. Know that these 4 things have their different names because the thing itself is only one thing, namely the little tree of grain which comes from a single grain. These 4 things were previously hidden in the little grain of wheat, which were brought about by one thing, namely by the one work of nature in a fertile earth by a warm air and the sun's rays, as I said before. But I ask you to look carefully at this little plant or tree of the wheat seed with the eyes of your understanding, according to its particular circumstances, so that you can also plant the gold tree of the philosophers and encourage its juiciness to grow in such a shape. Namely, that the noblest gold or silver, in whose nature all the heavenly and earthly powers of the prepared elements are infused, can grow and come to fruition immediately as in an uncorrupted seed. So I say that the gold or silver mentioned is not dissolved from its cohesive material by any mineral matter or separating water or the like. Just as the wheat grain, when it has been corrupted by the moisture of the earth, rots and is released from the bonds of its first fixation, so superfine gold and silver can also be dissolved and separated from their bonds in which they were held together by the sulfur and salt, just like the little grain of goat was. Which the philosopher can easily do with the key of the wise, namely through the juicy and fertile virgin earth of the wise. With one word, the gold can be dissolved, calcined and prepared by sublimation using our living natural water. So that after all external foreign things have been cleared away, it remains in its spermatic strength and is promoted to a new birth or generation, so that in this way the soul and spirit of our living gold are separated from its own body in which it was held captive and whole lay powerless to give birth to the Philosopher's Stone. Then there is nothing more certain than this, namely that nothing is found in the world that can be born again and resurrected unless it has previously died and rotted, and that is why killing is the only means and way and entrance to a new birth. Everything is told through the means of natural heat. Furthermore, the dissolution of the Waitsenkern did not occur in the sandy, stony and arid land, but through a visible and temperate moisture of the earth, so that it would swell and draw into its roots the natural strength of the central salt of the earth, as if from a special appetite it mixes with him, takes his food from him and unites inseparably with him, remains with him and hides in him. When the body accepts the natural moisture in this way and draws it into itself and it becomes embedded in them, the body of the seed opens and prepares itself for a generation or reproductive birth. So also and in exactly this way our virgin becomes natural earth arranged and cleaned without any extraneous things added. I want to say so much that we throw the metallic seeds of the living gold of the wise into the mercury of the wise in order to bring forth their gold tree. Here, my dear son, I want to speak even more clearly and teach you the secret of the Philosopher's Stone in just a few words. Therefore you should know this with certainty, that all the toil and work and artificial diligence, the hidden secret of the wise, consists in nothing other than how one should naturally bring about their precious virgin earth and how one should build it afterwards and prepare it in the same way and manner as good farmers prepare their soil in which they bring it to the farmers, which you should keep as a great secret. Watch how the plowman does it to bring in the grain. First of all, he looks for good soil, then he provides himself with a good seed as nature can provide. After that, he tries with all his diligence and care to prepare and build the earth well. Firstly, he tills it and removes the large stones and thorns that would damage the seed that he wants to sow in it. Then he makes the earth even more subtle and gentle by repeating the cultivation in different ways at different times of the year, and this, on the one hand, in order that the earth may be watered, washed and moistened and nourished and impregnated by the heavenly powers through rain and dew, on the other hand, in order that the earth may be drained and dried out of its superfluous watery moisture. He warms his earth and receives the same heat from the fatness of the manure he sprinkles on it. When this has happened, he takes his seed and sows it without any skill into the earth, which he has diligently and carefully prepared in this form. From this you see that the farmer, in order to produce his seed and produce it, uses no other diligence and care than to cultivate his field well and to give and use such good seed as nature provides. Whenever the children of whiteness do their natural work like the good farmer, they do their work well. And just as farming is what costs the farmer the most, it is the price, and when he makes his first purchase he pays the earth, even if it is mean and contemptuous, so what costs the philosopher the most is nothing else the acquisition of the earth, and when the wise possess this earth, all effort and work extends no further than to prepare it in a natural way according to the work of wisdom. In exactly this way, as farmers, we also rid our earth of all uncleanliness and superfluity. Then we make them finer and more subtle, wash them, sprinkle them and dry them according to art and nature. When this happens, we do it we fed them with their natural fatness, and when they subsequently receive the heavenly dew, which we communicate to them in the wise way, then they are so well prepared that they are strong and well disposed to take the metallic seeds of our stone, which is the living gold of the wise, and whoever in time brings forth the golden tree of the wise. See, my dear son, that in a few words the entire foundation is the key and the source of the philosophical work. I want to say so much that by means of our virgin earth, having been prepared and built in the manner of the wise men, and then by means of our living gold, which the right metallic seed is thus thrown into this precious leafy earth, the gold and silver tree takes root and so on grows so that they can be propagated in a different way and transplanted according to the wise way. Then it is certain and true that the gold, which was made in the manner of the wise men through their artificial hidden secret nut, acquires such great, unusual strength and virtue through its rebirth that it incomparably surpasses the virtue of the gold that nature makes in the earth, so the other recompense surpasses the first, the third surpasses the other, and the fourth surpasses the third. That is enough to say that every time he is transplanted or transferred, in his rebirth he multiplies tenfold in his strength and virtue and reaches such a degree of exuberant perfection that through his penetrating heat and highest purity he becomes the silver and mercury perfect and natural gold from the mine. Now, my son, after I have shown you the right way and manner in which the children of whiteness sow the gold tree of the wise rightly and well, plant it and then move it again, so I want to explain to you in the following chapter what the right material is for them wise men use their gifted stone to set the work. So I want to properly discover to you all our secret natural operations or work and tell you the practicalities at the end of this book. Chapter 3. Which is the right sign by which one should recognize the virgin earth of the wise, which is certainly the materia prima of the Philosopher's Stone. Just as there is nothing more certain than death and nothing more uncertain than the manner of death and the hour to die, so there is nothing more certain than that the true philosophers work on a certain material. But there is nothing more unknown to the chimists and the ignorant than the science of the materials that the true children of whiteness use to produce the great work. Now, my son, since I have promised you that I will teach you the practice of our stone clearly and completely, I want to speak about it simply, honestly, and without parochialism. And I want to begin your instruction by telling you the properties and certain characteristics by which you should recognize without error our true material among all things in the world. I want to tell you the infallible real and strange signs that belong to and belong to no other thing in nature than our virgin earths alone. So you should then know that the subject or thing you have to take to make our universal medicine tangible is a precious material that is not found on the earth of living people. It is a physical spirit or a spiritual body, which is certainly the true saltpeter of the wise. It is actually a rich, hard and juicy earth which is very useful and very delicious, common to the intelligent and very hidden to the ignorant. This wonderful material is found everywhere in the valleys and plains, in the caves of the earth and in the mountains. Yes, in his own house. It is the dew of heaven, the fatness of the earth, and the delicious natural saltpeter of the wise. It is the sticky mud from which Adam was made. Recently our material is a virgin earth onto which the sun has never shot its rays, even though it has the same father and the moon is its mother. The philosophy call our virgin earth a nursing mother of the gods because from her original origin Sol and Luna, yes, of all metals she is also called a bride of the starry sky because he sends her his good influence every day completely and superfluously. Then Hero she is also called a soul and vitalizing spirit of the elemental earths, then she the birthing or generating power has locked up in it all the colors and properties of everything in nature. Yes, what is even more important about our delicious material is that nothing could live without it. The wise men often call our earth their androgenum and their hermaphrodites because it has two natures, that is, from it the sulfur and mercury of the wise men are extracted, of which both the one is taken for the man and the other for the woman. She is also called Protheus and Chameleon the wise because she is capable and changeable of many shapes and forms, so that the sun and the air also change her in a natural moment, without looking at one thing and the other, in bringing about our precious matter to do their own thing. This alone is enough for a philosopher to learn to know our virgin earth and to distinguish it from the common earth. But so that I can help you to recognize it correctly and without mistakes, I tell you once again that our material is nothing other than the earth, but not the one on which we walk, but the one that hovers over our heads, which the wise call their virgin and leafy earth, which is one earth has been from the beginning of the world and yet has never been no earth. It is the element that elements the earth or gives it its origin. Recently it is said that it is the noble earth of the earths of the wise whose father is the sun and its mother the moon. I say the fatness of the mineral earths is the noble spiritual and corporal essence or being from which the true Mercurius of the wise is made. It is in truth the true common Mercurius of the wise but not the common Mercurius of the common people. It is the heavenly blessing that emanates from this heavenly earth because it is watered and impregnated with the heavenly powers of the great starry sky. You can look for and take this delicious material in the caves on the plains and on the mountains. Then you can find them in all places on the inhabited earth. But you have to take them and catch them before the sun sees them. You should now also know that when you have a proper knowledge of our certain materials, you will extract from them the mercurium of the wise, the virgin earth of the wise, the precious salt of nature, the living, everlasting water of the children of whiteness, and through it you will make the gold or the metallic sulfur of the wise, and you will compose or put together their rare and most hidden unburnable fire. But believe me on that. It is almost impossible that one can discover and find out what the true and some materials of the Philosopher's Stone are unless they are faithfully revealed by a good friend who knows them. Therefore, what we call the philosophical work to make from it is nothing other than the little fish Echinias, which has neither blood nor size and lies in the deepest part of the center of the great sea of the world. Now this little fish is very small and unique in its shape, and the sea is big and wide, so it is almost impossible to fish for it, especially for those who do not know in which place or part of the world it rests. Believe me for sure that the person who says like Theophrastus cannot do the art of taking the moon down from the firmament and bringing it from heaven to earth, of making it into water and then bringing it into an earth, can never find the right material of the wise men of Stein becomes. Then in the truth that one thing is no more difficult to do than the other. Nevertheless, when we say something confidentially to a good friend in a few words in one's ear, we teach them the hidden secret trick of the wise to naturally, nimbly and easily catch the little fish Remora, which has the power of the largest ship in the oceanic sea, which is the haughty one, and to stop proud spirits of the world who, because they are not children of art and the rich and precious treasures of nature cannot lie hidden in the delicious and heavenly water of life of our sea. But so that I could give you a bright light from our few materials, or virgin earths, and teach you the high art of the children of whiteness and how you should bring it about. So I must first give you lessons about the magnets of the wise, which have the hidden natural properties of the center and the deepest part of our sea, and from the highest and furthest places from the Orient to the Occident, the little fish Echiniais or Remor bites into itself pull. Which, when fished according to nature, naturally turns into a water and afterwards into an earth which, when it is properly prepared by the most artificial secret of the wise, has the power to dissolve all fixed bodies. And to make the fixed bodies volatile and to cleanse all poisoned bodies. You will find the practical aspects of this, described in just a few words at the end of this booklet. Chapter 4. Of the philosophical water that is so unavoidably necessary for the composition of the works of the wise men. After you have a complete knowledge of the true hidden matter from which the wise make their stone, when you desire to reach the perfection of their great work, you must first make this matter into water by a simple and hidden artifice, and when you make it more natural if you have allowed it to smoke, you must transform it into earth by a very secret, gentle and natural means. And when you have done so, you can be assured that you possess the true virgin earth of the wise, which is an earth from the beginning of the world and which has never been an earth. The wise men now make their mercurium, yes their double mercurium, from this virgin earth. From this I say they draw their dry water of life, which they call their watery fire or fiery water because by nature it devours all bodies and dissolves them in the root and all its parts. But when I tell you that it dissolves the body, I do not understand that you should use the metallic body for this purpose. Then the body is not the material on which we work because the bodies cannot give into themselves and penetrate. The bodies or bodies have no dignity or strength except through the spirits they have within them. Yes, the spirits themselves cannot carry out their duties and office unless they are free and released from the hard bodies, in which the spirits lie tightly entangled and locked. From this you must conclude, my dear son, that the transmutation or dislocation of metals cannot take place through the hard, dry, and solid body but solely through the soft and liquid body. That's enough to say that you have to bring the moisture back by making the hidden visible. This is what the wise people call it when they say that the hard should become soft, which is nothing other than making the bodies raw again, that is, softening in the water of the well of youth so long that they are rid of their hard and dry bodies and therefore the dry ones in the meantime. As I have already said, the body does not shrink and nothing tinges or colors other than itself. Because then the fat and earthly body does not color anything, so it is history because it cannot enter into anything, and that is precisely why it cannot bring any alteration or change with it. So it is therefore certain and true that neither gold nor other hard metals can act until the spirit hidden in it is drawn from it and drawn from the center of our golden Adamic earths through our white water and brought here, which water becomes spiritual and make white. Yes, even to a spirit and wonderful souls. When you will properly consider my words, you will recognize that they are intended to teach you that the primary purpose of our divine secret nut is only how to bring the hard, dry body into a liquid, volatile and spiritual substance by means of our living water from it well of the wise men. O dear son, how wonderful is nature because it has the power to transform bodies into spirits, which it nevertheless could not do unless the spirit first incorporated itself with the body, and when the body and the spirit did not become fleeting and then permanent and ever defensive. I want to say so much that the noble art of the wise is very wonderful because it can make gold volatile and fleeting even though it is already very fixed by nature. Through this word that I say to you I want to make you understand that unless the bodies are dissolved by our living water and soaked in it, softened and opened to such an extent that they are transformed into a pure, subtle spirit when they lose massive hardness, our work will certainly be in vain becomes. Then, as long as the bodies are not transformed into unbodies that are brought into their first material, one certainly does not yet have the rule or the key found in our art. Then the entire purpose and goal of our secret nut goes unanimously and solely towards how to transform the hard, solid body into a liquid substance, to make a perfect tincture from it. Then it is true that each tincture has 100,000 times more tincture when it is in a more liquid substance than it would otherwise be when it is in a hard, thick body, as can be seen in the example of saffron, cochineal, and scarlet grains. Therefore I tell you again that when the bodies are not made small and small by water and natural fire be made subtle so that they can rise like spirits, yes, I say, they become like water, smoke or mercury, so the key to our art has not yet been found. Anyone who wants to work according to nature, which is certainly in the philosophical work, must begin his first work by destroying and dissolving bodies and by changing the metallic forms or shapes. It must be that the bodies are no longer bodies but only fixed spirits. One must unavoidably and necessarily destroy the hard, dignified form and shape of our metallic and vegetal and animal, that is, growing and living or rather Adamic earth, and bring and change it into a moist, soft, and fluid form or shape and being. Then in this quality alone it has power and strength to enter into the other imperfect bodies and to mix with them in an indistinguishable and inseparable manner. What the hard bodies of metals can no longer do because they are too earthly and material. But in order for me to speak to you a little more clearly and to reveal to you all the obscurity of the wise, you should know that when you want to reach the perfection of the work of the wise, you must follow nature in all your work from the beginning of the work to the end. Then through it the wise men make their double mercury, and through their double mercury they bring their stone to the end. Nature, I say, gives them the true material in which they work for themselves. They are only their servants to take away a number of things, change them and do them again according to the requirements of the same nature. But do all this according to the intention and usual order of nature so that it becomes even more powerful could have an effect. Just as philosophers are true successors of nature, they also act like nature, which does not allow anything foreign into the composition of its work. Rather, it always works through things that are the same and have the same nature. Then nature loves nature and rejoices in nature. So the wise man must also make his stone and not use anything foreign to it nor, in some ways, add anything foreign to his work. You have to go by the nature of the thing that is to be dissolved. And that thing should be dissolved in this way must be of the nature of the thing that dissolves. Better to consider how a child is conceived, the menstruum or menstrual blood of the woman. Is it not in its beginning and origin the same nature and the same material as that from which the child was formed? From the looks of it, it seems like there is a big difference between them. So the water of life in our fountain of youth must also be of the nature of the metallic seed, so that through a precise congeniality and kinship of nature they unite with one another, and that the strength of this natural love strengthens the bonds that make this precious seed so strong, bound and entangled, hold, destroy and break. If our dry and living water were not of the nature of our sulfur and natural mercurii, it would never unite with it in all its parts, as it does when they are joined together. It would never have the power to take them out of its prison. But our dry metallic water is so devoted to it and its nature that it is the sister of the natural mercurii. They are both of the same origin and both arise from one source and from one root, which is why they also love one another and unite with one another through the uniformity of nature. And when they are compatible with each other, we call ours double mercury. Because of this, take it well that you make the living and dry water of our well right, namely in the way I want to teach you, then it is the origin of our work. I say it is the noble and first key of the work of the wise, the most noble and necessary instrument or tool of our stone. And keep this in mind, that he is certain anyone who does not have the art of making it will make the work of philosophers barren. Then our water is the only tool or instrument in nature through which one can have, according to nature, the noble metallic seeds or the living gold of the wise. Then the wise sulfur cannot be extracted in any other way than through his natural menstruum, which sends itself to this delicious and wonderful metallic seed. Which natural menstruum is nothing other than our living and dry water. Then think of nothing else than that you make right our living or heavenly water of life, which does not wet hands and is sweet and good and without sharpness. Then from it and through it we draw the germinal or metallic seed, which is the true and some material of the Philosopher's Stone. Chapter 5. On Mercury's Nature and Properties. The mercury in the chymic art is the common mercury which, to all appearances, is cold and moist and in its inner part, hidden, hot and dry. It should be noted here that what is hidden within him, which is warm and dry, is extremely hot, greasy and moist. It is a living and corporal spirit in which all congelations or freezing together of our stone are hidden. The elemental spirit of the common mercurii is completely and without reservation subject to all the higher spirits. This is the case with all sulfur or metallic seeds of the great lights. Then because it has no certain shape or form, it takes on itself the spirit of the sulfur of every metal, just as wax takes on the impression of all kinds of buried islands. And just as the earth, drawing water to itself, is impregnated by the power of the water, so that the same water is transformed into the production and nourishment of plants, so also does the common mercury, when it takes on itself the elemental spirit of the sulfur of gold, it takes on the form and shape of gold. When it takes on itself the elemental spirit of the sulfur of silver, it takes on the form and shape of silver, so it naturally blends in with one and the other and accommodates itself with all the highest metallic spirits in the same way as humans do man with his wife. And never tell such things without mixing. And keep secret what I have now told you and revealed to you. Now so that I can give you a brighter and clearer understanding of what form the fixed brimstone of the wise and the common mercurius approach their change and inversion of one nature into the other. So I ask you to bear in mind that common water, although it is naturally cold and moist, nevertheless mixes with the vegetables or plants when cooked, and that it takes on a different mixture and power from them than its natural one. And this is because of the things that mix with it, through which things, when they are mixed and combined, the water in every boiling takes on the qualities and properties of the mixed thing. This is exactly what the mercury of Phil does. It clothes itself and impregnates itself with a different nature and quality by taking on the perfect nature of the metallic sulfur with which it is naturally cooked. Then when it is boiled with the sulfur of gold, it will take on the nature of gold and will change into the nature of gold and congeal or solidify. If you cook it in the copper or tin, it will also take on the same quality and change into its nature. Yes, this will also be the case with all other metals if these things only happen according to the measure of nature, and nothing is as strong as nature. Just as it is now impossible for nature to stray from the right path of nature, I also teach you that if you want to make gold and silver through nature, you must dissolve its metallic seeds and mix them with the common mercurio and cook them according to nature, while our common mercurius is their real and natural metallic water, in which they adopt a change and perversion of one nature into another. This is after which the common mercurius has extracted the seeds of gold or silver from the innermost part of their bodies, then he is impregnated with its nature, just as water is impregnated with the vegetable things or plants that are boiled in it. And like the nature of the germinal or metallic seeds in our virgin earth or general mercurio will alter or change in the same color in it, and will hide itself in it and insinuate or merge under the shape and figure of our common mercurii to such an extent that we will not be able to recognize it in any way until the very end, when it will freeze or confess or be congelate. But here, my son, you do not have to deceive yourself, as the ignorant always do when it comes to the word of the general mercurii. Then you know well that there is a noticeable difference between the general mercurio and between the mercurio of the common people. When we speak of the common mercury, we mean the mercurio who is general and who gives life to all things that exist in the world, but the mercurius or quicksilver of the common people, which the ignorant consider to be ours, is the one that the spice merchants and pharmacists sell. You should know that, like a great philosopher, Mercurius the wise talks about it, even though he is common and extremely necessary to the whole world, but is not found on earth. He doesn't show himself, he is naked, and yet nature has miraculously entangled them. The above-mentioned philosopher also adds and speaks of the difference that exists between our mercury and the mercurio of the common people. 1. Mercurius vulgi does not dissolve gold and silver and does not mix with them so that it cannot be separated from them again. But our common mercurius dissolves the gold and silver and mixes with them so that they cannot be separated from them again. Once he has mixed with them, they can never be separated from each other, any more than water can be separated from other water mixed can be separated from one another. 2. The mercurius vulgi has within it a combustible black and evil sulfur, but our mercurius has within it an incombustible, fixed, bright white and crimson sulfur. 3. Mercurius vulgi is cold and moist and ours is warm and moist. 4. Mercurius vulgi makes the metallic bodies black, ours makes them white and brings them to a crystalline whiteness. 5. If mercurium vulgi is precipitized or knocked down, it becomes a yellow powder and an evil one sulfur, but our mercury is transformed into a bright white solid and liquid sulfur by means of the worm. 6. The more you cook the mercurium vulgi, the more subtly liquid and volatile it becomes. But ours does the opposite. Then the more you cook it, the thicker it becomes and less liquidy. From all these circumstances, which this distinguished man recommends us to take care of, you can see what a great difference there is between the one and the other. But when I will have shown and proven to you that the researchers of this art, who understand mercurium vulgi before our common mercurium, are not yet sufficiently informed in the secrets of our Kabbalistic art, and that by separating themselves so incredibly far from the right path of truth some error prevents them from ever achieving the intended purpose and goal of their project. So I want to teach you one more thing which, concerning the composition of our stone, is no less important than what I first taught. That's what I want to explain to you now. Namely the place, known to so few people, where the wise men artificially hide the keys that can unlock the lock of the hidden secret of their art. Therefore you should know that it is absolutely impossible for you to reach the work of the wise men if you do not know our artificial piece through which our Mercurius can be gradually and naturally made fat, because the wise men say that the Mercury or Mercurius nothing can be transformed unless it has first been changed and perverted from one nature to the other. And when it is changed, it also changes when it is dissolved. And when it is coagulated, hardened and frozen, then coagulated it hardens and makes it freeze. But now we do not harden our natural mercury and make it freeze for no other reason than that we bring it into such a state that it is capable of hardening all other common vulgar mercury, freezing it and making it thick, while the real change in the metals does not do anything else. History is frozen by our common fattening and converted from one nature to the other mercurium. Our Mercurius is not yet hardened, either changed by the wise so that he receives the strength and power to harden and change. Then when it is boiled and combined and digested by cooking with the sulfur or metallic seeds, we change and transmute within an hour, and when it is not previously hardened and transmuted while frozen, we cannot transmute anything. In summary, my son learns that this is a piece of the highest secret of our art, namely the ability of science to artificially and leisurely make our common mercury fat. Then when he is in such a state, he is certainly the key that opens and closes the door to our stone. It was once certain that the sulfur of the wise is the soul, the form and the metallic seed of the stone. But it is also certain that our common Mercurius, even his body, is matter and earth. Sulfur is the man and our Mercurius is the woman who is easily impregnated by her natural bridegroom. The metallic sulfur is the fatness of the earth of the wise, and the common Mercurius, when it is composed and united with the sulfur according to nature, is then the fat earth of the wise. I say it is the earth made fat and manured, then the wise one which is able and ready to bear its fruit, that is, it has the power and strength to make a transmutation or change. It is true that our Mercurius can do nothing by himself, but when he is united with his concomitant thing, namely the metallic sulfur, his powers and properties are increased and increased to the utmost, because the metallic sulfur increases our mercury to a very high degree of an excellent value. Yes, about the power so specific or generating in a reproductive virtue which our Mercurius does not have from his nature and which he borrows from the virtues and properties of the metallic seeds, then I have already told you that our Mercurius is absolutely subject and dependent on the elemental spirit, the upper sulfur, because it, as it does not have its own certain determinate form, takes the form of every metal, whatever it wants, by lovingly and naturally uniting itself with the elemental spirit of metallic sulfur, like the woman with the little man. Through this union and loving embrace of the spirits, our Mercurius the wise receives and impregnates himself with the metallic form of gold or silver, just as wax receives the imprint of a pitcher or seal. And when the nature of our frozen and fattened mercurium has been transmuted or changed into the form and shape of gold or silver, then it changes all other mercurium in the same nature. Now, my son, with little to say about it, the practice of making the mercurium of the wise, together with the art of how to conjure and make them fat, will be found at the end of this book. Chapter 6. That the composition of the Philosopher's Stone does not come from the pure seeds of the metals, and in what way the precious seeds can be extracted and presented according to nature. My son, you should know that this is one of the greatest secrets of our art, namely the create science of the true practice of living gold or metallic sulfur. It is infallibly true that it is a great science to have an understanding of the warm, delicious virgin earth, but I must also confess that the knowledge and practice of our wonderful heavenly water of life and life-giving water is very wonderful. And the ingenious art of doing the same is as necessary for the excellent work of art as its rare and supernatural effects or qualities are extraordinary and strange. Whether the qualities and virtues of our heavenly water of life and the unusual virtues of our mercurii or virgin earth are very high and great, you should nevertheless believe me that the metallic sulfur of the philosophers is, without comparison, much more excellent, much more hidden, much more delicious than either of them thing. Just as the rose bush is sought and cherished by the gardeners only for the sake of its flowers, which it bears in its own time, so also the virgin earth of the wise will be looked after by them only for the sake of its flowers and fruit of living gold as it makes them and in its time bring here highly valued and held. And no matter how the plowman's soil would be completely useless to him if he didn't have good seeds in it, so our heavenly Mercurius, who is the precious virgin earth of the wise, would be of no use to us if we did not have the living gold of the wise to sow in it. Yes, one can still say that the metallic sulfur of the philosophers is in the virgin earth of the wise men, just like the precious stone is in the stone rock, and that our living and dry water is comparable to the stone cutter who breaks the stone rock so that it can give us the precious jewel discover whiteness. Now to speak properly of the matter as is proper, namely of these two pieces or things, one can fairly say that the virgin earth of the wise men and our dry water in the natural work of the wise men are two natural instruments and two most necessary master craftsmen for our gifted stone make. But it is certain that the knowledge of our metallic sulfur is a science which is even more difficult to come by. Yes, you should know that the ingenious extraction, according to nature, of our living gold is the highest secret of all the secrets of the wise, and whether it is highly artificial to find it is even more necessary to know. Then it is certain that without the brimstone of the wise it is quite impossible to reach the perfection of their work. This metallic sulfur of the wise is the first material of the metals, it is the metallic sulfur and the living gold of the children of whiteness. It is the right material from which our golden tree is to be born. He is the noble key that opens and closes the door to our stone. He is the soul, the form and the metallic seed of gold and silver. And when the wise men naturally collected these metallic seeds, they called them their first material. And in truth, my son, it is exactly the same thing that they have hidden in their writings and covered up with so many names. Whatever I command you to do and to keep secret and never to reveal clearly, as I will teach you at the end of this chapter. But in order to give you a clear understanding of what the wise sulfur is, which is actually our living gold or metallic seed, I want to show you in a few words what form the birth or creation of gold takes in the belly of the earth story. Then through this you will get a knowledge of the first beginning of the composition of gold, and I want to give you a bright light about this first beginning so that you can recognize which are the real roots or metallic seeds of the gold, about which I will have taught you, when if you pull out the same metallic seed you will certainly be able to make the Philosopher's Stone. You know that everything that comes from the earth, that grows and is brought from a fertile earth by the mixing of moisture and natural waste, so the metals are also formed and brought by the fertile mercury, which is their first material, which when he a little with the dryness and the resulting moisture, that is when the mercurius is brought together with a pure salt and a pure sulfur and has been united, then this clear mercurius brings gold and becomes gold through the power and virtue of nature. And it is precisely for these reasons that Mercurius the wise is called a fertile and rich earth of metals. But now the metals do not receive their hard and corporal essence other than through the union and gathering of the three elements of their natural composition. Then the sulfur gives the body of Mercurius the properties of strength and virtue, the salt but the connection or congelation. The sulfur that is in the natural production of gold is so cleansed of the filth that it has naturally that it is not possible to find a purer metallic body. This is, in truth, sulfur when one finds it in such simple and perfect purity can have. Whenever Mercurius is extremely well prepared and cleansed of all earthly accidents, he is then changed into his mercurial body alone. This is the Mercurius the wise who makes or commands gold. As far as the salt of gold is concerned, it is nothing other than a metallic vitriolic water which is extremely crystallized and completely purified of all bad smoke and brittleness and all alonic and vitriolic wateriness. From this you can clearly see which is the right principia or the first materia from which the gold was created in the belly of the earth will, and be assured that from these metallic roots the branch, from which the gold grows in the ore pits of the belly of the earth, will be brought here. Yes, when you open your eyes of understanding, you will see that I give you a clear light to sow and plant the gold tree of the wise in a natural way. Then when what the philosophers say is true, that gold makes gold as man begets man, I want to give you an understanding of the hidden secret of the children of whiteness on this infallible foundation. I want to tell you that the wise man comes from exactly the same beginnings of the sulfur, salt and mercury, from which gold is made, from the very same materials and pure substances, I say, which extracts the true metallic seeds of gold, from which he makes the stone of whiteness. In sum, I want to say so much and conclude that this is one of the greatest secrets of our art, that we know how to unlock gold and its first materials through our heavenly viscous water of life. And that the essential parts, namely the salt of sulfur and mercury, can each be made into a visible and comprehensible corpus. Then through this means the first matter of the wise is brought into the last matter and the last in turn into the first. For those who do not understand this secret philosophical operation nor can do it, that is, who cannot separate the substances of our natural mercurium through the spagyric and right philosophical art and then reassemble and unite them with weight and measure without a single spot or macule of impurity, has not yet found the secret of our art and therefore should not attempt to make the Philosopher's Stone. Now when, through a simple work, you will have extracted and separated our sulfur from our precious Adamic earths and afterwards united them together again, as I told you, according to proportioned weight without a single spot or blemish of uncleanness, then you can be assured that you have the truth right metallic seeds, and the living gold of the philosophers are the only materials from which the Philosopher's Stone is made. When this living gold is placed in a fertile earth that is comfortable for this material, this is thrown into the mercury of the wise, and when it is boiled in it and digested and perfected by our Olympic vitalizing heavenly fire, it becomes an elixir, or the purest sulfur of the wise, from which the children of whiteness are created through the philosophical art and prepare for the simple security and help of nature, its great universal medicine, which heals all sick bodies and cleanses the poisonous bodies, dissolves the fixed bodies and cures the volatile ones. At the end of this chapter, my son, I want to tell you again that the solar sulfur that we have philosophically extracted from our Adamic earth is the wonderful key that opens and closes the door to our stone. He is the unknown metallic seed of gold, and without this wonderful seed our precious earth cannot be drilled. Just as a man begets a man, and as each form brings its form through germination and seed, so whenever you want to plant or sow the solar tree of the wise, it must be necessary that you have the true roots of gold. But if you do not have the true metallic seeds, you will not do anything good in our work, and you will never see the golden tree of the wise grow nor bring forth fruit. Just as the reproducing seed brings about the things of its nature through its strength, so you should believe that when you sow the golden seed in our virgin earth you will harvest gold, and when it is made of silver you will harvest silver. I can assure you through my own experience that it is the philosophical sulfur that we put together and make from these two pure substances, namely our delicious mercurio, and the solar metallic seeds. But it is certain that his strength is increasingly strengthened and increased and multiplied millions of times more than when he was bound and wrapped up in the mixture of his massive substance. Therefore, you now know that it is completely impossible to arrive at this wonderful masterpiece of the Philosopher's Stone unless one has the right practice to extract the true and pure seminal substances of gold and silver according to nature. Which can't happen except through the most hidden secret of our philosophical mercurii. I will now and soon explain the brutal operation to you in just a few words at the end of this book. Chapter 7. Of Natural Calcination. The natural calcination or combustion of our spiritual and natural materials is so essential and unavoidably necessary to the work of the wise that without it is entirely impossible to arrive at the composition of their stone. Then through it we extract the salt of nature, the sulfur and the mercury of the wise, but know that this natural calcination is not known except to the true children of whiteness. It is put into practice quite sensibly with great art, which is nevertheless quite simple and easy to do, namely to those who have been shown how to do it and who know it, but to those who have no knowledge of it, the secret is very hidden. Nor will it be any easier for them to find or invent by themselves or by reading books than to bring the moon down from the firmament and place it on the earth. But we carry out our natural calcination or roasting for the sake of two different causes, firstly so that the combustible part of the fat sulfur, which is corrupting and spoiling, is dissolved and completely separated from the fixed spirits which are calcined, which combustible part is separated from the calcination according to its nature, defend and resist in the fire, due to their interconnected nature. The other reason why we calcine is so that we can dry out the volatile watery coagulated moisture which is connected to the fixed part in the root of its entire nourishing moisture and bring our delicious material naturally to the salt or lime of nature. Concerning the cause why we calcine our matter and make it a lime of nature and dissolve the spirits or volatile and fixed sulfur and drive away the watery moisture, so this is for no other reason than that we dry out our precious matter according to nature so that we can which make a porosity or opening in its salt or natural lime. Then you should know that when the material was not porous or open so it would not attract its own food and their multiplying food could not get into them. So then notice what I am saying to you, that our spiritual material must naturally be dried out, because at the beginning of our work the dryness should overcome or exceed the moisture, and because it is of the quality and substance of the earth, it should gradually transform itself into the nature of the earth. Make sure that the porosity of the figured soils is not corrupted and lost through excessive and frequent soaking. Then you should know that if our materials were not naturally calcinized, and it happened that the calcined part of our fig earth should remain continuously in our mercury, the mercury would never be able to be turned into ashes. This is because the dry quality of the earth, which is supposed to overcome the moisture, would itself be moist. And if in this way the humidum radical or basic moisture could not be transformed into a natural lime but would coagulate itself into an imperfect body and the foreign and volatile sulphuriness would never be able to be separated from it but would always remain stuck in the belly of our mercury and resist the fire which would not have the power to consume them nor to take them away. Therefore, when you calcine your material, take diligent care to ensure that you maintain the porosity. Then if your material were not porous, your work would be unsuitable because your virgin milk would not be able to penetrate into it to impart to it its natural multiplying nourishment. Now, in order to teach you well and reveal to you the great secret of this art, I do not want to prevent you from being able to prevent the porosity in your spiritual material from disappearing when you naturally drive away the watery moisture and the corrupting sulfur. But I teach you this that you will never separate nor release the watery moisture and the volatile sulphuriness of the fixed and corporal spirits except through our natural calcination. Then it alone is how our delicious material naturally turns into ashes, through which the true lime or salt of nature is made the nutrimental moisture of the wise. This salt of nature or natural lime is compared to the heart which draws to itself the purest and best part of the animal's diet. Then our natural lime draws bodily and converts into its nature the ashes all the virgin milk which is given to it for drink and nourishment. And be assured that it is a great secret in this art, the science of the practice of our natural calcination, to have preserved the porosity. My son believes me to be certain that this point, as it relates to natural calcination, is one of those things that the ignorant are often offended by, while the wise have always kept it hidden and have never wanted to explain it to them in their writings. And whenever they talked about it, it was always just a cover for something or body other than natural matter to lead those who were not children of art away from the right path. That's why it's very difficult to get the right light and understanding from her books unless you are enlightened with the light from above or when some good friend doesn't kindly reveal something like I do. Therefore, make use of the practice of my experience and let yourself be informed by the explanation I want to give you about these points of natural calcination, by means of a comparison of the common chemical calcination with the philosophical one. You know that the chymists who only work on hard bodies as existing metals and minerals, when they want to calcine them, have to do so in strong fire or strong water in order to conquer the hardness of the same metallic bodies, and yet they only do this unlawful calcination so that they can obtain their materials. The more subtle they are, the easier they are to dissolve, and they imagine that the philosophers have prescribed their calcination only to the end, making the dissolution the easier it is to bring it to fruition. But look at the shape in which they achieve nothing in their project after so much effort and work. Then their supposed material is just as difficult to dissolve as their calcination was before. Then I say that this chemical calcination cannot be compared with the philosophical one, nor does it agree. Then the common chymic calcination history with great effort and work through strong water or fire, which destroys the porosity, and our history without great force of flames, it is easily history through a small, gentle fire which is so natural that it naturally calcines our material and does not change it, or that the strength of the giving birth seeds is destroyed but the porosity is maintained. If our matter, which is the metallic seed and the giving birth spirit or the first matter of all natural things, were in the hellish fire of the common chymists, our flowers, which can be so easily changed or altered, would be completely destroyed. Indeed, the corpus or body of our precious matter would not be able to withstand the violence of its fire but would be completely consumed in a very short time, or its inner nature would be so corrupted that after the change and destruction of its virgin seed it would remain completely barren. So my dear son learns from me at the end of this chapter that the hidden secret of the natural calcination of the wise is nothing other than killing the living water or the spirit of the world and naturally turning it into a salt of nature, that is, from our precious material nothing is corrupted or damaged but rather the porosity and nurturing powers which it had before the philosophical calcination. Chapter 8. Like our natural lime, it should be washed and whitened naturally. This is how our earth should be sprinkled and nourished with the everlasting water of the life of the wise. My son, after I have told you the reasons why the wise calcine their materials, I do not want to hide from you that the other term that is opposed to calcination is inhumation, which historically softens and moistens the dryness of our calcination through the impregnation. It makes the physical spiritual, it makes the fixed fleeting and the heavy light. In sum, the natural calcination and impregnation of the wise men are two things that complete our work and make it perfect. The one kills the living body and the other makes the dead body alive and gives it a new life when only the impregnation through and with our living and dry water of the watery fire or fiery water is namely artificial according to scale and proportion, as is necessary for the principio activo of nature. I say these impregnations must be done with heat and moderated cold that are very mildly measured and proportionate to the effect or influence of nature. That's it. The heat has to be broken by the cold and the cold by the heat. And hereby know that this secret art between the cold and the warmth is the very thing which brings the soul and life into the body, and remember well that when we want to reach the high perfection of our great masterpiece, the entire secret and masterpiece of the art consists in the measure and proportion of the gentle and open impregnation which one must provide like a dew. And believe me that all the efforts and intentions of the wise ones went unanimously and specifically to the point that they wanted to drink in and dry out. That is why the wise also calcine their earth in what they want to throw to the seed so that they can warm it up and make it so thirsty that it is eager to drink and to fill up on superfluous masses with the juicy and natural moisture which it gets from our water of life, chooses which water her mother is her sister and her nurturer. Then when the earth, in the natural calcination, has lost its watery moisture through the soaking of the sages, we ensure that another radical, fatty moisture takes over it, which is much more comfortable and beneficial to its nature. So I'll say straight away that our natural lime is extremely dry and has been freed from all foreign superfluous moisture, so it is also extremely thirsty, which is why they also drink it very eagerly to refresh themselves with the thing that they lost and from that one thing she has lost to replace. My son, you should know that when the part in it is the basic moisture or humidum radical in the human being, you should always dry it out one after the other. You should be assured that death will soon be there because the living moisture in which his natural warmth is no longer is in him produced and heated. One can say that our precious material also has a similar quality when it has been calcined. But when it is sometimes divided and mixed into very small parts by frequent boiling, and when this boiling is gently layered to the end that the watery smoke is dissolved and its basic moisture is dried out and spit out or made thick, then I say more like this: the natural heat increases and the fire multiplies. Through this thing I want to make you understand that the operation or processing of the food that we give to our matter is completely uniform throughout history and according to nature, because the food that we give it through our frequent impregnation is nothing other than a movement that is different from the natural one. Heat flows out. The wise say that a compound thing consists of many connected and differentiated parts, which consist in constant nourishment or entertainment and outflow, while there is always an inflow and loss or outflow. Then it happens that you have to give it food at all times so that it always receives an inflow and refreshment and replacement until it reaches its destination or goal. From this you see clearly that all food has its history through ejection and retention and differentiated parts. Yes, you also know well that the retention always takes place historically in the parts that belong to food through the assimilation, which the same nourishing part has with the nourished part in nature. But the ejection occurs in those parts that are unequal to nature and opposed to union, and then it is necessary that all food should contain ejectable things or feces in it, although nevertheless every part of the food is a nourisher. My son, I have taken it upon myself to inform you that the mercurial substance of our natural earths is not watered, washed, nourished, or increased except by things like its mercurial nature, and every other thing that is contrary to its nature is rejected and given no nourishment excepts. Those who asked the wise men what they fed their stone and their newborn child with received an answer, which they then also wrote in writing. Left behind, they nourished their stone with the salt of nature, with the boiled wind and common water, through frequent philosophical impregnations. In sum, you should know that in the philosophical work the too much and too little imbibition and expression are two disgusting things. However, it can be noticed here that too much is completely contrary to perfection. It happens when the matter is soaked or dried. On the other hand, the too little that is contrary to the too many always exists in the path of the true measure of nature. That is why the too little is to be praised at all times, whether it happens during the imbibition or during the expression. Therefore, remember that a small impregnation only requires a small depressurization, and a small depressurization only requires a small impregnation. When you recognize that excessive fire causes our matter to dry out too much and becomes weak, you should strengthen it by proportionate impregnation. You can then give her stronger or more foods to eat. If you give her more than she can tolerate or digest, our work would be spoiled as a result. You probably know that you don't drink if you don't eat, and that you don't eat if you don't also drink, but be careful that you don't give too much to drink. If you give it too much water, you would ruin all your work. If you wanted to soak our earth, you would ruin it. Therefore you should know that the washings and impregnations of the wise must be done gradually and little by little, and yet with great art. But do not imagine that the water that the wise men use to wash their precious materials and make them white is common water. This piece is the mirror and the main piece of the wise men in their project of the natural work of their stone. You should also know that after the natural calcination, our virgin earth, the metallic seeds and sulfur of nature, are, as it were, dead and will never have any life left unless they are resurrected again. But now it is certain that they can never be truly raised up except after you have opened them and washed and bathed them many times in the flam fire of the water of life and heavenly fire, which of the Father who gives life is the one who begets and commands all things in the world. And when, through frequent repetition, you have washed and bathed our precious materials naturally in the vivifying rays of our fiery water and watery fire, you will then be able to say with certainty that the body that was once dead has been raised again, and that it has been born anew and became a glorified body through the union of this spirit of life. I say that our essential brimstone and salt and virgin earths, after being impregnated by the vitalizing influences of the suns, are philosophically sublimated and exalted. That is when the virgin earth of the philosophers will have ascended to heaven, and when heaven will have descended to the earth. Then our earth of the wise, after it has been impregnated with the purest and most beneficial influences of the star, will be fertilized and endowed by such means with and from its natural fatness. Indeed, it will in this way be very well prepared and capable of being absorbed into its belly to take in the metallic seed of the living gold of the philosophers, which dissolves in it and rots as naturally as the wheat grain in the elemental earth. Behold, these are the certain and genuine impregnations and natural washings of whiteness which are unavoidably necessary to the composition of our stone, the practice of which will teach you at the end of this book. Chapter 9. Which form the solar golden seed, and the mercurius the wise shall naturally be cooked in the life-giving fire of the wise. After I have informed you extensively and properly how to plant and grow the philosophical gold tree, I must now inform you of many useful and necessary circumstances. I must tell you about the vessel of the furnace and about our life-giving fire, which has the power to bring our precious matter to its highest perfection. When you will have completed your natural impregnations and philosophical washing and will recognize that your matter has become white and gum-like, then take your philosophical matter and put the gum together like Mary did. Prophetess then says that this composition enters the philosophical egg and loses it in a hermetic way. But take note that you put neither too much nor too little of your material into our vessel. If the vessel were too large, our natural mercurius would certainly become nothing. That is, its basic moisture would deteriorate to such an extent that the natural dryness could not affect it, and the material would therefore become completely sterile. And if you take glasses that are too small, our flowers would be so suffocated that they would never produce their fruits to any degree of perfection. Therefore, Take care that when it comes to your material, 3 parts of the vessel are old and no more, and do not put more into each vessel than a half or 2 at the highest. When you will then have put your natural composition into a glass vessel which should be of a correct and just proportion to your quantity of matter, then you should hermetically seal it, and then you should put it in the furnace to work with the fire of whiteness. Accordingly, your fire also rules in such a way that the external heat does not exceed the internal heat. If it were too great, the union would not be able to happen because the excessive heat would destroy the matter and burn it. If the external living fire were less than is necessary, the spirit of the matter would remain immobile and inactive and would do nothing with its basic moisture, congelate, congeal, or act. Then you know well that the spirits of the metals are dead and, as it were, sunk into a state of slack, and then cannot operate or kill unless they are raised again and made alive by living and quickening fire. Therefore, it is important to you that you make the living fire of the wise men right. Then this is one of the most important points of their work, and governs it in such a way that it is neither too big nor too small. And when you maintain it as it should in its right degree of temperature, you will see that your natural materials will begin to attack each other and heat up one in the other to such an extent that in a short time everything will turn into one. Water does not turn into common water, but into mud-proof and noise-proof water. Above all, I command you that you carry out your work in such a white manner that when you move slowly your fire is always gentle and uniform and in accordance with the fire of nature. Then a fire of this nature can never spoil anything. On the contrary, it is a cause of awakening the heat of the sulfur and bringing strange effects to light. Know therefore that the greatest secret of this art lies in fire, and that it is not without great cause that the wise men have left us in writing that the fire and the azoth are sufficient to prepare their stone. Here I want to give you a warning regarding the interpretation of this text, which will not let you fall into the common error of those who want to be held in front of intelligent philosophers, even if they are not already enlightened about the hidden secrets of our Cabalæ. So learn then that when the philosophers so expressly command us to use fire correctly, their opinion is not to advise us to use the common fire, even if they already know that the same can be governed by different degrees. Nevertheless they know very well that because of his nature, active or busy, warm and trucking, he can never do what he commands. So it is also certain that their intention is nothing other than that they want to make us understand that we should make a fire whose nature and hidden power is far different from the common fire. Yes, they give those who have the gift of understanding to clearly understand that the fire which they are commanded to make is made and composed of such material that for a time heat, dryness and moisture come together in it, so that putrefaction, the circulation, occurs without any cessation, and the conjunction of matters and a perfect boiling could be accomplished. And even though our sulfur and our mercurius are born again and raised again through the impregnation of the spirit of life, they are still not exalted in strength and virtue, because the heavenly spirit only associates with them but does not yet constantly join them in an indissoluble bond, united and connected to them. Now it happens through this perfect and most necessary union, or the union of these precious materials, means that these bodies become so magnificent and so powerful that they can perform the wonderful effects or effects that we see them produce. But this union cannot be brought to fruition by congealing and then figuring our heavenly mercurium with our philosophical sulfur or metallic seed, which figuring must take place through a natural boiling in a nourishing and vivifying fire, which is the wise philosopher's fire. In summary, after I have shown you and made it clear that philosophers do not burn their fingers when they make their stone, and that they use a fire other than the common one when they make their work, I now want to show you the difference by saying one thing compare with the other. 1. Now the chemist's fire is common and known to everyone, and ours is artificial and difficult to find. 2. Theirs is elemental and ours is natural and just as life-giving as the heavenly. 3. Theirs is busy, warm and dry because they make it from wood, from oil or coal. But ours is warm, dry and moist and more spiritual than material. For, item that theirs does nothing when there is no air and ours does not do any action. It is then locked and must also be in such a harness which is so locked that not a little air can get in. 5. The chymic fire cannot be controlled well and stops or goes out when it lacks the material that supports it, but ours always has its constant, uniform fire. It is maintained by itself when one does not put a hand on it, and through a spiritual vapor it radiates and circulates incessantly on our material. 6. The chymic fire is busy or spicy, warm and dry. Its first quality is that it consumes and destroys everything in which it enters. And if what I say is true, we know well that her mildest fire is the balneum Mariae, and yet eggs can be boiled in it. If her mildest fire can destroy the germ of a thing, then it is true that the other fires who are much stronger and can do this more and more. So what concerns our fire is what warms it. Our precious material cooks gently or slowly, and through a continuous radiance it keeps it elated, moistened, nourishes and increases its strength and virtue. In sum, the philosophical fire is completely unlike the chemical fire. Theirs is violent and corrosive, but ours is mildly kind and natural. It is closed, aerically vaporous, circulating the matter around and around, comprehensibly brightly pure and mildly at the same time constantly tempered, and just as nourishing and invigorating as the heavenly. The most wondrous thing about the philosophical fire is that it is exactly the same as the material of its stone, and is taken from the purest substance of its intestines, that is the inner part, through the art of our rare secret. I can also assure you that this real fire of the philosophers is also their true artificial balneum Mariae, the secret of which they hide no less, as one should do, than the material of the philosophical stone itself. While the science of one brings with it the understanding of the other. Chapter 10 is an admonition to the son about the right use and majesty of this work. My dear son, after I decided long ago to leave you in writing what I had previously made clear to you in words, I wanted to do this to satisfy my desire in my old age. So I am not writing this at the end so that I want to teach you something new. Then God has filled you with His strange graces, and through me has revealed to you the knowledge of the highest things as they exist in nature, but so that I can give you a memorial and a pledge leave behind my affection. And in particular, by expressing my thoughts to you in this art, I show you what kind of thoughts you should have about it, and with what kind of spirit you should possess it. I know well that you do not have such opinions and thoughts about it as I do, but considering the greatness of these materials, I thought that my words would not be in vain but would confirm you in the good work you have begun, and that when I die I would like to have this consolation, that I would entrust such a gift from God to such a person for the sake of his office. Well informed and a God-fearing pious man would be. Then to behave otherwise than this would be misusing God's gift. I also understand the goods of wealth and health to be used by the godless and those who are not worthy of living. That would have gone against God's providence, which gives some people a short life and others a long life. Some in poverty, some in wealth do everything for the increase of their honor and for the sake of the soul's happiness. Therefore, as much as you have in you, you must not help condemn the person whom God wants to make happy through poverty, nor prolong the life of the person who only uses it to offend God and who would plunge himself into ruin if he were to live long. Otherwise it would help to go against the will of God Almighty and to give an account of many souls who are guilty. So my son considers that the secret nut of the universal medicine that I am teaching you is, as it were, a branch of the tree of life and a strange blessing of God, and cannot be any other way. The great goodness of God gives this gift and gift to the person who receives it, not for his own benefit but to serve others, as we see in the gift of languages. From this you see clearly that it is not permitted for you to reveal this secret nut that I teach you, but only the Lord God belongs, who alone knows the hearts of men. It is then that the goodness of God reveals to you a person's good heart and drives you to reveal this grace to him. It is also not your duty to make the usefulness of this work your own and to use it according to your will, other than just living according to your status, according to the rule that whoever serves the altar should also live from it. I am not unaware that just as this great gift is not given to the person who has it for his own benefit, neither is it for his own merit, since it is a gift of grace. Therefore, woe to anyone who, when he sees such grace from God happening to him, shows himself to be ungrateful towards the great goodness of God. My dear son remembers what an extraordinary and special gift of God it is to prolong one's life, that is to give strength and health. That's why you shouldn't bother with it. Be content that you serve the Lord God only with ordinary and common work. This science and knowledge generally move our will, and it wants our actions and omissions. Because you then have strange knowledge, why shouldn't your will as well as your actions or works be strange and beyond the common course? You should always have this word in your mind, that the more given to a God, the more he will demand of him, and that 5 talents will be demanded of the one who has received them. My dear child is well aware of this word and is sure to believe that I would rather see that you are a good Christian than a good philosopher. I rather believe in the lowest level of faith in the right love towards God and my neighbors than in all other divine and worldly knowledge and science, because on that great day we will not have to give an account of the science, but only of love and of the works which necessarily follow the same. Since God gives you the science of natural things, you strive to possess the most noble things at all times. That is why you are a pious person. Oh, what a lovely spectacle it is before the holy angels and men when these two qualities or virtues are found in a human being. You should also consider that the benevolent God who made man in his own image also wanted man to be like him in many things which seem to contradict the high divine majesty and human unworthiness. Then you know well that the entire world is mine, described by God alone. That is to say that all the goods that the earth provides are his. It is also written about him alone that death and life are in his hands alone and that he alone is the announcer of the heart, all of which binds you not only to love and serve them but also not to reveal our art easily. To prove what I am saying, you see that when God made this knowledge known to you, he made you more like him, not only creating you in his image, but also because he gave you more true goods than the entire earth talk in itself. Then through this wonderful science he gives you the treasure of human life by making you, so to speak, master over the life and death of people, while through this science you can communicate and maintain the health and strength of people and thus prolong life. Yes, the least that can be said of you is that you are a little more than a king. My son, did you also want to behave and act like a slave by being something more than a king? Are you not rather obliged to do divine work and to conform to the will of God, who bestowed upon you such abundant grace that he thereby made you half a god? I also said that God alone is the one who announces the heart, thereby showing you that you are not allowed to share this talent or gift given to anyone who wants to, because you cannot do this except by chance, because you do not know the hearts of people. But I want to reserve the divine inspiration here, which can direct you to meet a pious man and clearly recognize the foundation of his heart and, with such recognition, reveal your art to him. Believe me, my son, that what I teach you is of no small importance when you are so highly connected to do right and good and to keep the fruits of the tree of life that you own well. What will it be for God when you treat the tree itself badly by making it common to the wicked? When the fruits can bring them to ruin, what will the tree itself do? In summary, my son, you should be a follower of God in the distribution of the fruits and possession of the tree, which is in the recognition of such a high secret. God has goods and gifts for us, not for himself. So the Lord God has the treasure of human life and you have not placed your hands on it that you should be the owner of it for yourself alone and your closest friends, but that you should distribute it to all the pious and whom you will recognize as worthy. Know that the Lord God only wants to reveal this secret not to the pious, so you should do it too. When you do this, you will be a cause that my bones will rest gently in the grave in anticipation of the glorious future of the Son of God, whom I ask from the bottom of my heart to meet you with his grace and blessing, to keep you constantly in good spirits, and to graciously grant you a blessed union with him. Amen. The End.